How cute is that?
Hello and welcome to the Gooners Podcast, Season 5, Episode 39. I know none of you were probably with us last week because no one was with us last week, but Owen and Andy were so dressed up for the pod, and they didn't tell me. So, did you not get the memo today, people?
No,
this is your usual attire.
What do I look? Is this a French look or just very, very, very cultured? I don't have a monocle, and it's killing me. But should I keep this? I mean, is this my new look?
It suits you, buddy. It suits you.
This is my grandfather's hat. So this is actually this is the first time I've actually worn it. But anyway, enough about me. This is Season 5, Episode 39, called Shmoral, and we didn't title it that like most people think because yesterday was some sort of moral victory. We named it that because Owen has absolutely no morals, and we're going to be delving into that tonight. So good to see you, buddy. You've been a busy beaver on YouTube recently, today specifically.
I have, yeah. I was on Jess's podcast earlier on for the first time, which was absolutely brilliant. She's pulling in some numbers over there. I'm quite jealous because I put in a lot of graft and I still haven't got Drew onto my podcast and multiple times on that podcast already. So I have to have a word with him. I know he's in the chat.
It turns out if you know what I've learned in 5 years of podcasting is people will watch if you know things. And
that's probably the downfall.
And if you don't, people lose interest. So that's kind of our situation. But and this isn't the first time you've done a podcast with our first guest today, someone who's breaking their Gooners podcast down. The highest of technology here. She's an outstanding podcaster and football mind. Welcome to the Gooners Podcast, Jessica Black.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Like, this is totally different. Like, we've been on podcasts together before, and you bring a certain type of energy that's awesome. So I'm sure this is going to be like on 1,000. So yeah, I'm
future
excited.
Politicians of the world, a certain kind of energy. I love that. Based on your Twitter handle, which you have up on the screen, it's Jacinho. I mean, I can only assume that you're Brazilian. Is that right?
No, I'm not. It's just
Jacinho
Ronaldinho's my favorite player. So, I just put my name and his name together and made that, I hope nobody that's Brazilian is offended. I'm not trying to offend you or anything like that or try to steal your shine or anything. It's just Jess plus Ronaldinho, and that's just it, So. Hey,
I think we can allow that. So are you aware you hold an Arsenal podcasting record? I mean, I have become, as you can see from my from my look, the record keeper of all things Arsenal podcast. I've taken over for Danny recently. You've broken the record for most Arsenal podcast appearances in 2021. We've had 53 days so far this year. Do you have a guess as to how many pods you've either hosted or guested on?
I don't know, like 20 or something?
The answer is 4,293. It's incredible, and every single one of them better than the last. I mean, you're prolific AF, and dead honestly, I try to watch whenever I can because you always bring the goods. And I've become a crotchety old man in the podcasting world for no good deserved reason, but just because I just think there's enough already. But the reason I think that there's enough already is because a lot of people just do the same thing. They just turn the video on to hear themselves talk. No offense to anybody that does that. There's room for everybody, but I'm get really caught up on differentiation. And, look, for better or for worse, our pod's different for worse most of the time, but I like what you bring to the table. You do things differently. You include the audience. For God's sake, you even got Dragomir, the Bulgarian Gooner, on the screen for a face reveal. And I suppose we could have done that if we had asked, but see, that's innovation. So excellent stuff. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Also back tonight, Ryan Rocastle, our mate. Glad you could join us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be back on.
It always seems like it's after a loss. But we've got 11 of them things now, so it's kind of easy to get together.
Yes.
Keeping with the Brazilian theme. Your dad was widely known to play football like a Brazilian, and we're about to, we want you to start podcasting like a Brazilian. So I know we didn't prepare. Owen was supposed to tell you this, but you're going to be doing the rest of the pod in Portuguese.
Oh, Could be a struggle. That could
Are
be
we
a
good?
short pod.
Just put Eno at the end of everything that you say. Like our starting lineup was ridiculino.
I'll hand it to Jess. She
I won't be any better. Like I won't be any better.
So this is the get to know you part of the show. Jess, we always ask Gooners who are joining us for the first time to kind of tell us their Arsenal inception story. And, most people who join us for the first time get that treatment. Ryan doesn't, because, if you don't know where Ryan kind of discovered Arsenal, then you've been living under a rock, and I can't help you. But
I asked him that question. How fucking rude. I asked him because I'm... Move on.
Yeah, imagine that. Like, yes, Ronald Henry. How did you get into the Arsenal? I don't know if his kid's named Ronald, but probably not. So anyway, tell us your football background, your Arsenal story, and kind of wrap up with how you got into podcasting, and then we'll probably get to this game that we have to do.
Yeah. So basically, I used to play. I played. Don't kill me, but I played soccer. From the time I was like 6 all the way through college. And don't kill me. So we don't call it football here.
Snobs.
Just making sure, because I'm sure somebody in the comments will be like soccer, but I know it's not soccer. But yeah, that's what we used to call it. And so I played, and my mom was really supportive of me. She still is. She'll probably end up in the comments section somewhere at some point. But she wanted to give me more opportunities to see the game and all that kind of stuff. So we started actually watching. And in America at the time, all they were really showing was like the women, obviously, because they were amazing. Some MLS. If you got lucky, you could catch the Mexican League, but that was pretty much it. And then when coverage started to expand a little bit more, the only games that they would show from the EPL were Manchester United and Arsenal games. So the first EPL game I actually ever saw was a Manchester United game. So for a couple of days, I actually was a Manchester United fan because that's all I'd ever seen. Until like the next weekend, my mom was like, oh my gosh, like come over here, look at this. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was in front of the television. I'm like, what are we looking at? And she was like, look at this team. It's called Arsenal. And look at this guy. His name is Thierry Henry. He's literally the best player I've ever seen. And so we're sitting there in front of the TV. And honestly, for me being always like the only African-American kid on any team or any class or anything like that, it was really interesting for me to see a team full of Black players. So the people that look like me that were actually like amazing at the game. So
this late 90s or so?
This was like early 2000s, like 2002. I'm older than I look, just FYI, so I'm older than I look. So, yeah. And then, so it was about like 2002. I started watching, and from that moment on, I've been obsessed with the team. Unfortunately, I never got to watch a game at Highbury. We did a tour, but that was pretty much it. And I've been up to this point, I've been to 2 games. One of the games was when Granit Xhaka pulled somebody down in the box against Brighton. That was my first experience at the Emirates ever. So thank you, Xhaka. And then the second time that I went was Newcastle.
Second one, he ripped off his shirt and told the crowd to fuck off.
I'm glad it wasn't that. It was Newcastle versus we beat them 4-0, and it was amazing. It was actually right before the coronavirus really got bad. So exactly, I'm 52. Thanks, Drew. Thank you so much.
I was going to say,
years old.
Bertie Mee was her favorite manager by far. I mean,
so yeah, but that's pretty much my story. Like obsessed with the team, been obsessed ever since I actually saw them. And yeah, so I'm here. And podcasting started from Tanner. If you guys know him, he's the Bearded Gooner. He gave me an opportunity to do a show on his channel, and I've been just doing that ever since. And now I'm here. So yeah.
Started from up here. Here, it was all going so well for you until tonight.
Yeah, it's like Drake said, you started from the bottom, now I'm here, but then now you're back at the bottom again, and you got to work your way back up after tonight.
Oh man.
but look, now. So real quick before I pass it on to you, Owen, because I know you like to start off with the lineups normally, and I'm sure this is no different. But have a Feinberg family story about when the lineup came out yesterday. It's a lovely story. It's emotional. It's got compassion, unconditional love, acceptance, stupidity, all those great things. So about half an hour before the kickoff, my son Jake rolls out of bed, comes downstairs, and he's like, "At least the Brazilians aren't playing today." Which is a weird thing, considering how, again, with the Brazilian theme, considering like Brazil's known as being the best footballing nation in the world, and like for the history of football, and only Arsenal could have a team where you're like happy that our Brazilian players aren't playing. That's an aside. But then my dumbass is like, no, you forgot one because Pablo Mari is starting, and he's like, no, Dad, he's Spanish. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure. I'm getting mixed up because he played in Brazil, I guess, or South America. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure he's Brazilian. And he goes, Dad, do you have any idea how many times I've packed him? And I started crying. I'm like, Jake, I'm glad that you like confide in me about that. I'm like, I accept you for whatever. I love you. This is a strange way of telling me this, but like, it turns out he meant like FIFA.
Yeah.
And I mean, those kids know every single thing. Like they see a little card come up on FIFA, and it's 84 and Spanish, and he knows that it's whatever player it is. So yeah, our Brazilians didn't play yesterday. I guess in one case that's a little odd, but take us through the starting lineup, and then add some actual tactical news to this show that I don't have.
Yeah, it was a strange one because I think on Thursday, going by the lineup, you would have really thought that Mikel Arteta was probably placing all his eggs in the Europa League basket. But Ryan, did you expect to see so much rotation, and were you surprised to see some of the names on that team sheet when it was released?
Just thinking of it. Maybe a couple of them. But if you think about probably El Neni, to be fair, and then the Holding Mari partnership, to be fair, was broken up by an injury to Mari. It wasn't because he was playing bad, because he was actually playing very well. And then who else was there? Pepe, Odegaard. I mean, Smith though has played the last 10 games, hasn't he? He started the last 10 league games. Yeah. So I personally thought he looked a little tired on Thursday as well when he came off. So actually, to be honest, I wasn't totally surprised by the team. The maybe El Neni and possibly at centre back to not have David Luiz or Gabriel, but I didn't think it was a particularly bad starting lineup. I have to say, I was. You can't be confident against Man City. Like that's just how it is at the minute. They're so much better than everyone, but it's not one where it came out and I was like, wow, that lineup,
Yeah, I suppose maybe the questions I think people had is with the Europa League being so critical, the fact that players maybe such as Kieran Tierney and Bukayo Saka were risked, I was actually really, really surprised at how strong Man City went, because we all know that the Champions League is the sort of golden goose that Pep Guardiola is chasing at the minute. And I think in our preview show, I had mentioned that I thought we were going to see a really heavily rotated side, because I think, with the point deficit at the top of the table, that Man City could probably almost take a week off, if you like, because I thought maybe Mikel Arteta was going to do the same, and we would have seen a lot of rotation. But just moving on, we don't really have to move on much further than the starting whistle going off. But the first goal in around 90 seconds, warning signs were already popping up. Raheem Sterling narrowly missed out. But then a few minutes later, the ball, switch ball across the field, Riyad Mahrez, Kieran Tierney maybe caught out a little bit of position. But what did you make of that goal? And not only that, but look, there's blame being, like everything, there has to be blame put on somebody. But out of the Kieran Tierney and Rob Holding, I would maybe classify as probably the two most culpable there. Who would you drop the blame on for that goal?
I mean, it's kind of like what you said, it's like you're looking for somebody to blame. And I definitely think they're both culpable for that. And I think ultimately the team was not switched on from the very first moment. You could just see that they were being overran by Man City, the strength of Man City, the fact that they were trying to get ahead early, and we just were unable to handle it. In terms of the goal, I think I would say that the most egregious might be Rob Holding, because I don't really understand exactly. I don't really understand how somebody, what is he looking at? That's your whole job, is to make sure that you head the ball out, and you You didn't see Sterling. Was there no communication? And again, I just think it's the level of the lack of concentration in that back line. I think Tierney, you can kind of take a little bit away from him because we know he's rusty. Plus, we don't see those types of mistakes from Kieran Tierney very often. But like what we said earlier, Owen, on my show, was that we can count Rob Holding. He's starting to, get more and more of these mistakes, coming a lot more frequently. So I'm looking at him more as somebody that I can't trust. Whereas I know that when Tierney's not rusty, he's not going to make those mistakes. So I would say Rob Holding for sure.
He kind of reminds me, Holding is starting to be a little Koscielny-esque in the sense that Koscielny was a solid defender, but when he made a mistake, it was costly. Like obviously the League Cup final is one example, but I mean, he would make a mistake every once in a while, and it was just a ridiculous one. Holding is potentially, if you look at the fact that both games ended up 1-0, he's cost us 2 points in the last couple of weeks with mistakes, and the same kind of mistakes. This one against Man City, and then not tracking the guy from Villa, Ollie Watkins. That goal was started with the Cedric nightmare, but wouldn't have happened, as Kevin Campbell has rightfully pointed out in the wake of that game, time and time again. Rob Holding's got to not mark the space, but mark the man, because space doesn't score.
Yeah,
so,
that's a perfect point. And I actually think that when Kieran Tierney is being called into question, and this isn't me being an apologist, I do think he could have done better, but people talked about the space that he gave to Riyad Mahrez. But if you actually watch the whole move back, the whole defense, the whole backline shifts to our right in the pitch, moving over to that side, staying nice and tight and compact, which is obviously going to be the tactical instructions given. Anybody would give the instruction to stay tight, stay compact against Man City, and he was moving over. So he was sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place in that if he moved over with the defense, in which he did, he was leaving Riyad Mahrez alone. But if he had stayed with him, he was leaving a completely open channel in between himself and Pablo Mari. So I have a bit of sympathy. And Riyad Mahrez, much like Ian Robin, is one of them players where it's like, don't let him cut in on his left. But it's saying it's one thing and stopping it is another. I think that Riyad Mahrez for the opening half hour was almost unplayable. But Ryan, something that I thought that we did in this game was show too much respect to Man City. Do you think it was a tactical instruction to sit off, maybe because we were leggy from Thursday, or do you just think it was a case that there was that sort of fright factor?
I just think Man City were that first. I have to say that first 15-20 minutes from Man City, I can't be too harsh on us, because I haven't seen a team do that for a long time in terms of the speed, the accuracy of passing. If you think
that was prime Barcelona kind of stuff. It
was so good. And I remember me and my sisters were sitting here watching this, and we thought, like, this could be 5-0. Like, it was so precise and quick from City. I do get what people say, but I've seen us, Owen, try and go toe to toe with Man City and be 3-0 down after 25 minutes on a couple of occasions. It's when they play like that, there's nothing you can do too much apart from try and work your way into the game. And so where I'd be more critical of us is actually, I thought we did work our way into, especially the half, but we when we created the opening, we missed the final ball, and I thought that was disappointing. That disappointed me more actually than the start. It's because I thought the start was an unbelievable performance from the opposition.
Yeah, it's scary when they get into that sort of flow. And I mentioned earlier on Jess's podcast that it's games like this where you realise just how much of a job we have in our hands to get back to where we were. How far off that we are. But something that I also mentioned on Jess's podcast earlier was that I think that there's there's things that a team can do to narrow the deficit of quality between the two sides, and it's get physical and put hard tackles in and close the space. And
That's what everyone does against us, or at least did when we were better than they were.
And not even that. I mentioned earlier to Jess and Ryan, I think you'll agree with this because me and you have had a couple of conversations before about the sort of style of play that we like, and it's that when I seen like Bukayo Saka getting targeted and getting hit pretty hard, or when Aubameyang was heavily shouldered off the ball by John Stones, if I'm their teammates, I go and I slap the person who done that to them with a tackle that's twice as hard. Do you think that there's a frailty within this Arsenal side still?
Yeah, I do. Like, I think it's. I can't. I just don't see anyone apart from. You know, I don't. It's just not been our way of doing it for a while. Do you know another thing, Owen, that I think is why when we get like a handball, the Smith Rowe the other day, or David, they all look so guilty. You think, oh God, it must be a red card or it must be a penalty, because there's no every other team has got about 6 or 7 men behind the ref. And it's just, there does feel like there's still this kind of like, just like acceptance. I feel like Aubameyang yesterday, I think after about 7 or 8 minutes, he gave the ball away and he just had a look of a guy that knew he was in for a long, do you know what I mean? Instead of, okay, I know it's going to be a tough game, but you're the captain, okay, you've given it away, hunt it down, like show a bit of determination to win it back. I think body language is important, and I'd still say, unfortunately, it's been like that for a while. I'd say, even
there's a fine line between being classy and just keeping your head up and playing the game, and just being complete pushovers. And we've been the latter for a long, long time.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's too whiny and cringy to say that. I think if we did suddenly try to grow a spine and knock the hell out of players, that we'd end up with 8 people on the pitch.
I think the difference now too is that back then we had better players, so it was almost like, okay, well, we may get hit and we may not fight back, but when we come up against certain teams, they just don't even try to play us because we're so much better. Now we're weak and the quality is a lot less. So that's a real problem. You got to make up the deficit somewhere. And I'm seeing a growing theme under Arteta that, if things don't go perfect, we can't readjust. It's like everything kind of has to go our way from minute 1, or else, we're kind of done. If we give up an early goal, pretty much finish, get a red card or a penalty, it's over. And that just shows the weak mentality of the team. And I also think that it shows a little bit of an area to improve in for Arteta, because in game, when things don't go perfect, he needs to adjust too. And I'm just seeing that there's like a growing kind of theme here that if things don't go perfect, which they don't always go perfect, we don't adjust well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's annoying because I would almost say that there has been progress made in that side of Arsenal's game, that they are more combative and that they are more resilient and have a bit more about them. But it just seemed like almost to come out of the tunnel with that attitude, that the regression was really there from the get-go. But Mike, this is a tactical question. I'm not sure you're the perfect person to ask it, but I know.
I think that should just be understood. You don't have to mention that every single time you get ready to ask.
No, but I know under all that humor and innuendos that there's a tactical mind in there somewhere. Something that didn't make sense to me whatsoever was that Saka and Pepe were played, which I was completely fine with, but Bukayo Saka was moved to the left and Pepe was back to the right. Pepe has shown throughout his Arsenal career that he's relatively ineffective in the system from the right-hand side, and he has been flourishing on the left. If you can, explain to me what the reasons behind that were. Why do you think Arteta deployed them in them positions?
Well, because I tend to have the same questions. I blatantly just asked the Twitterverse yesterday what the reason for that was. And the answer I kept getting back, which is the only plausible explanation that gives credit to Arteta in any way, is that he trusted Saka more to shut down Cancelo and Mahrez, or Cancelo and Mahrez, whatever the hell their names are. I can see that in the sense that if you need a shutdown person, like we used to use Mainsley on the left to shut down, particular pacey and troublesome wingers. Of course, we don't do that anymore. But to have Saka there, who's used to being a more defensively employed person than Pepe, kind of makes sense. But at what point does the fact that Pepe on the right with Bellerin is just useless? And I know, Jess, I know that's a big thing for you. At what point are you trying to tuck back, especially after we go down early? To not see them switch was surprising to me, because at that point you kind of got to go for it a little bit. And Pepe's just been so ineffective on the right side. Saka's been so much more effective on in the combination. I think the duos with the fullbacks work much better in reverse as well. You don't have two guys who are basically, able to cover the entire left side on the left side, and two guys on the right who, Bellerin's constantly in front of Pepe. He's dribbling the ball out of bounds. We'll get on to Bellerin. If you don't have planned, I will. It just didn't work. It didn't work, and that's an in-game adjustment that I think you've got to make.
I understand the theory behind it, as you said, about trying to preoccupy Cancelo and Mahrez down that side, and almost, while giving the defensive cover on their strong side, also giving us an attacking threat on that side to try and preoccupy them. But like you said, Pepe and Bellerin is just an ineffective combination that doesn't work, and it weakened one side and made us way too predictable. I didn't get it, and I think that not to jump on Arteta, because I think that the defeat was far from solely his fault, but I think that was an error that he made. But
could you just credit the fact that we only conceded one to potentially the fact that Saka did his job on the left side? Yes, it hurt us offensively, but I
don't think so.
So you don't even think that the lack of concession.
They took their foot off the gas. Like that's really what it came down to, right? Like they knew that they didn't have to. Too. Yeah, it really just comes down to that. I don't really feel like, if you've ever watched a Pep team play, they'll get one or two ahead and they just kind of put their foot on the brake. And then if they need to come back, they will. But for me with Arteta, I'm starting to see that maybe he's tinkering too much. And what we saw from the time that we started to play well was relationships and chemistry between certain players was starting to grow. And every single time that you switch it goes away. So maybe he needs to stop tinkering so much, tinker less, play your best team as much as possible. Because you saw that Manchester City decided to play their strongest team. And when I'm starting to watch other teams in especially teams that are still in Europe, they're not really rotating as much as we are. That's more of an us thing. So maybe we need to stop tinkering and let this chemistry just kind of solidify, and maybe only switch one person, two. There was no reason to take out David Luiz and Gabriel. There was no reason to switch Saka and Pepe. No matter how smart you thought you were being, all you did was just eliminate the chemistry that we've had. And it killed us off, so maybe he just needs to trust the fact that he has the strongest lineup and let them be the strongest lineup,
But do we then start to hear the why is Lacazette frozen out people, and the why is Smith Rowe frozen? Like, the fact is we're in a position where we actually have an excess of healthy attackers. I'm not saying an excess of great attacking options, but Martinelli can't get into the lineup now because of Aubameyang and Saka. Forget Willian, but like Reece Nelson can't get a sniff. If Saka and Aubameyang and Pepe are playing, then Lacazette can't get in. So, if he doesn't rotate a little bit with our 3-game weeks, aren't you going to start to have people who are just minimalized completely, even though they started to show some form a few weeks ago? I don't know what the answer is to that logjam situation.
His rotation was strange for me. That was the problem, is that there was no method behind it. If he wanted to go full strength, I think there was stronger people he could have put out on the pitch, especially stylistically. I think somebody that we're going to touch on in literally 2 seconds is Aubameyang, but I think Lacazette was probably a lot more suited to this type of game. I think if he wanted to win this game, he could have put Emile Smith Rowe out, but he's played a lot of minutes. As Drew mentioned in the chat there, City didn't even come out of first gear. If we had got better, if we had turned it on and started causing threats, they would have just taken it up a notch. And it was literally.
They should have all played in robes.
It was like watching. It was like it was like watching a lion toy with its food. It was, and look, and like I said earlier, nobody was expecting us to go out and take 3 points from City. I wasn't, but it was the manner in which we were defeated. It was very submissive. And Ryan, moving on to Aubameyang here, he's someone who, let's just say, in the last 3 weeks has been highly scrutinised, then highly praised, and then back to being highly scrutinised again. Do you think last night that he was just a victim of a lack of service, or do you expect more from somebody walking around with the Arsenal armband on? Because I know me and you have talked about him as a captain before, but it was a very passive performance from Aubameyang yesterday.
It was, but you know, I was more disappointed with him on Thursday in terms of the I've seen that we've had so many games against Man City since Pep's taken over. I can't think of one good centre forward performance really. Like against Man, it's like the same with Odegaard. I can't, like it was like that with Ozil when we played. We just have I feel like it's such a one-sided fixture. Man City, like like when we were really good back in the day, and we had some of them. You had some of them get like. I remember.
I forgot about that.
This is a long time ago, but like 20 years when we used to play Chelsea, and it was just like you knew it was almost the 3 points, because even though they were a good team, we had it like we just had so many good memories playing there, and it's like that with. I find it hard to be too critical, because in the league, especially, we've had such poor performances against Manchester City that it's like, Aubameyang, to answer the question, he could have done more, but at the same time, it's not a total surprise that he had that kind of performance. And even if he was on top of his game, in the best form like he had been in the first, I don't know the first 2.5 years he was here at the club. If he played like that yesterday, I still wouldn't have been surprised, if you see what I'm saying. Because I just feel like we haven't. I tell you what, Owen, I've seemed to have watched so much again of Man City since they've become really good since like Christmas. I swear to you, the only player, the only striker, number 9. That in that last 2 months I've seen cause them any kind of problems is Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa. I've not seen anyone else lay a glove on them really. He's the only one that I've seen that's actually caused Diaz and Stones problems, and they've had better, they've come across against better players than what we're offering in the last few months. So yeah, it's a tough game for him, but. I like Aubameyang. When I say he was disappointing against Benfica, that's Aubameyang though I want to see where he gets he didn't put the chances away, but where he's interested. We're finding him with runs. He had 3 chances and he missed them. That's what I mean by disappointing. But that's how we need to play with Aubameyang, and I don't think we could have executed that on Sunday.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier on Jazz's podcast, for anybody that was listening to that earlier, I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself too much, but I actually think that in a way the captain's armband is a hindrance to Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I don't think he's that natural type of person that likes to have that sort of weight on his shoulders. I think that if everything's rosy and going quite well, i.e. the FA Cup victory, that he is the type of player that enjoys wearing it, but I'm not sure he's up for that nitty-gritty sort of hard graft that we often have to see from captains going through bad spells. But it's annoying because at this stage it would do more damage than good taking it away from him. But at the same time, I think that the longer he wears that, the longer this sort of downward trend continues to go.
I'm starting to favor taking it away from him. It's not something you want to do, but I think it could be put into the right context. And I mean, look, the next time we lose a game and he doesn't come out and talk to the press on the pitch and in the dressing room, or in the mix zone, whatever it is. I mean, I know it is not always automatically the captain that talks to the press after a game, win, loss, or draw. I think it should be, unless he's hurt or something like that. But I think that should be part of the job of being a captain. But I don't know who's making that decision. I don't know whether the club just protects him and doesn't even throw him out there, or whether he's given the option and says, I don't feel like talking today. But, to me, forget the body language. And I mean, don't forget it, but less important than that to me, or more important than that to me, is just be a leader of the club. Take responsibility loudly. Give your opinion on what the club needs. Your teammates need to hear that from you in one way or the other. And I don't get the sense that he's doing it back in the dressing room privately either, saying, you need to do this. The reason I'm not scoring is because I'm not getting the kind of service I need, whatever it is. And if you take the thing off of him and rest him for a few games and give Martinelli an opportunity. I mean, at this point in the season, you got very little to lose. We're not getting relegated. We're not getting Europe through the league, unless we somehow nip sixth place. I don't think we can go into next summer with Aubameyang as our captain and this thing going on. I think it's time for Kieran Tierney.
I think so. I think we talked about it earlier as well. Is that there's rumours of, I'm not sure how true it is, about there being a stipulation within his contract that if we don't get Champions League football, that somebody can trigger a release clause for 35 million for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, which I think probably.
And do we have to pay any of his wages? I mean, at this point,
if that's true, it's a get out of jail free card for us. At this point, I think we've tried it out, and we can see that we've probably made a mistake. And there's nothing wrong with being like, okay, we messed up. Maybe we need to move on from this. But we have too many good time players in this squad. And I can only really name on maybe, I don't know, Saka, Martinelli, Gabriel. I don't know. Who else? Tierney. That play no matter what's going on. We have a lot of players that kind of hide when things are not going perfect. And that's what I'm saying. Like, things are not going to always go your way. But I don't think going 1-0 down against anybody means just give up. I don't think getting a red card against a really poor Wolves side means automatically lose, but for us, that's what it means, because we have too many players with weak mentality. And when you have your captain of your club has one of the weakest mentalities, in my opinion, it's only going to breed, it can't breed positive results. It just, who is leading this squad? Like, who is leading it? And then you want to tell me, okay, Bellerin is the vice captain. Really? Bellerin?
Well, and people talk about Xhaka, and I'm like, that leadership on the pitch is lacking. But whatever's happening behind the scenes, Xhaka's been the captain of 4 teams, including his national team before, for a reason, as Andy always says. The reason I don't see it, it's everything behind the scenes that people talk about him like he's some sort of magnificent leader of men. But on the pitch, leadership is a unique and specific thing. Obama's not going to go running to the ref as the captain of the team if there's a potential yellow card against them, or one that should be called against the other team, like a captain's supposed to do.
That's a really bad example, because he literally, for the first time yesterday this season, I've seen him run to the ref over a yellow card. No, but I understand what you're saying.
I mean, I'm not pro remonstration, but a little bit more of it might actually help.
But no, look, I completely get what you're saying, and I think it's the captain's armband that it is something that has been thrown about as a negotiation tool for too long at Arsenal. But Jess, somebody you touched on there was Hector Bellerin. It's getting difficult to watch him now, and look, the one thing I'll say with this here is that I feel that Hector Bellerin has turned into one of these types of players that you can't criticize him without people saying, oh, the only reason you're criticizing him is because all his off the pitch stuff. And it's not that. I could care less what he does off the pitch as long as it's legal. I wouldn't even care if it was illegal, to be honest. But as a football player, it's getting really, really frustrating to watch him. And it's so funny because I was talking to I was talking to you, Mike, on this the last podcast we done, and I says that it's nothing complex. It just looks like the basic fundamentals of football. The shape of his body when he tries to play a pass, the runs he makes. You know, it's almost like, and I don't want to sound like I'm being too harsh, but for me, it's almost like watching a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old playing football.
If you don't want to sound too harsh, then I'll take the pressure off of you, because I'm going to just spin this for you. All right. Now look, that wasn't abuse. First of all, we're having a little bit of fun. I didn't send that to him. It just is. I mean, you literally, you didn't know that I had that uploaded, but you basically set it up by saying it's the fundamental things that you just don't see. I mean, you see that in the MLS all the time. You see somebody like look for a pass and they do the pass and it goes 50 yards out of bounds because they're just not skilled enough. The Premier League is like supposed to have filtered almost all of that out just by the mere fact that these people have ascended to their position on a Premier League team. Yet I don't understand whether it's confidence or, I mean, I can't take it with him anymore. And I love him as a person. I like his fire. I do like his intensity on the pitch when it comes to like being upset about something, but that's not, I mean, like ultimately that isn't going to, yeah, we need more of that, but we need people who can stand up for their teammates and not kick the ball out of bounds with nobody around them. Yeah. And, you know, I almost don't want to talk about him right now because if PSG is listening to this podcast, they're going to get scared.
Which
away.
We know they do.
We know they do. I mean, we have the numbers.
But Jess, is it really for you now coming in towards the sort of business end of the season? Is a crunch time for Hector Bellerin in terms of his future at the club?
I mean, I think the problem with Bellerin at this point is that he's just okay. You know, he's just okay. I don't think he's as horrible as people make him out to seem. I don't think he's the worst right back in the league, like some people say, but I definitely don't think he's as good as other people think. I think he's just average, you know, and that's okay for a team that, you know, you can have a bunch of average players and be able to get the most out of them if you have an excellent, experienced coach, but we don't. So either Arteta needs to have better caliber players, or we could keep these mediocre players and get a more experienced manager. You can't have both. And I think Arteta needs better resources to work with to make up for the inconsistencies in his coaching at this point. You know, that's really what he needs. I think he's working with some real dull tools right now, and he needs some sharper ones. So in regards to Bellerin, I mean, we have kind of like 5 or 6 players that are just okay, and he's one of them. So if he's at the point of his career where I think he should be, where he wants to do something else, I think he would be okay at a PSG. You know, it's a league where they dominate everything. You know, he doesn't have to be that great defensively because they're always on offense. So yeah, I mean, if he wanted
Danny Alves have had a great Premier League career, I'm not so sure.
Who?
But he got Danny Alves and guys like him. Like,
yeah, no.
Maybe he would have, but like he was able to just be who he was because of the league that he played in. And I could see Bellerin adapting to that. I agree with you.
That might be what he needs, you know, in order to be able to have extracurricular activities that he's interested in, to play on a team that has we are under pressure. Arsenal is an elite level club with a mediocre team that was in 15th place a couple of months ago. You know, this is not the type of team that he needs to be on. You know, I don't think he's necessarily as motivated as he should be, you know, but that's just me. Maybe I'm projecting, but I would take 25 million for Bellerin.
You're not projecting because you're really motivated.
You know, I mean, that's
Ryan. I mean, is Arteta going to let him go though? Like they've got this connection and this like simpatico. I mean, and if he doesn't, are we ever going to get value out of another player who is not good enough for Arsenal, but might be good enough for somebody else again? Because this seems like our last chance.
Yeah, it's tough. You know what? It's just I think it's a good example of why you can't always predict the path that a young player is going to go. Because if you told me that Bellerin, the player he is now, when he first broke through, and even back when he signed his new deal in 2016, which I'm sure we were all delighted with, because we saw what a potential he had, especially going forward. You know, defensively, I don't think he's ever quite worked out some of his positioning, but going forward, I think you do have to say he got injured he had a bad injury, and it's. I know people say, yeah, you got to move on, but it just affects some people can move on from that very well and they won't get injured. It's others, it affects their game. It's not just, you know, he's obviously lost some of his acceleration. That's obviously, you know, he might have started up higher before and now he's starting in those positions and he's realizing he can't get back. And then all of a sudden,
he's still always the furthest. I mean, I look at, not big on heat maps, but I always look for his heat map because I just expect it to be this big green dot in the, near the other person's corner flag, because he's constantly there.
Here's something as well to consider when just before you continue, Ryan.
Sure.
Is do you think that because I agree with you, when Hector Bellerin burst onto the scene, when Matteo Debuchy got injured, and he burst onto the scene, I thought that he was going to be one of the best right backs in Europe. He looked like he had everything, but I think he may have fallen victim to the fact that it was such a soft dressing room that he has sort of evolved through, if you know what I mean. Yeah, like there was no real leadership or mentoring going on at that time. You know, it was a lot of, like, again, just a soft culture. Do you think in many ways that, like when we talk about the mentality, the comments over the Sanchez being too competitive and stuff, do you think that maybe it was the culture that he was brought through and he sort of fell victim to that too?
Possibly. I have to say, I don't feel he is. I agree with Jess. It's a soft group. I wouldn't have him down as one of the softest. I have to say, I think he's brave especially in terms of some of the stuff he does off the pitch. You know, you're opening yourself to criticism. Like, it's very. I hate saying it, but when you act like how he does off the pitch, you're opening yourself to, which shouldn't be the case at all. But he's
mature. There's no question he's mature.
He does that. I just want to, Mike. You know, can you remember, and all of you, can you remember when we played Liverpool about 5 years ago? And Bellerin, he cut in and he jinked a couple of times, and he went on his left foot and he buried it in the bottom corner at the Emirates. I think we won 4-1.
4-1, yeah, it was 4-1.
They all bleed together for me. I remember his goals against Chelsea that were just, I mean, twice in 2 games. I mean, like he does have that big game knack in him.
It's just the point to show that where I don't think why he's technically so bad is because he's technically a bad player at the minute. I just think it's to do with some of his confidence that he's lost through the lack of pace he has, through some of the decisions he's made. And I just feel that if an offer, I get the feeling he kind of wanted to go last summer, and Arteta convinced him to stay because, and we won the FA Cup and the quick turnaround. I think this year, he'll push for it, and I think Arteta will allow it.
I think that would just be good for everyone.
Yeah, agreed.
Like, it doesn't have to be like, let's get rid. It's just, it's career progression. He's had 9 years here.
Yeah. It's funny because, like, this might sound strange because I criticize him on here so much, but I've never wanted a footballer to succeed as much as I've wanted Hector Bellerin to succeed, because he's everything that you want out of a footballer at your club. You can tell he has genuine love for the club. You know, he wants to do well. He wants to do the right thing. And like you say, he presents himself in such a professional way. He's a good ambassador for the club, especially like you're saying in the modern era when footballers have changed so much from, say, the 80s, So I just hope he does well. It's just there's too many sort of fundamental flaws with him that I see. But no, I agree. As we're sort of moving on towards the end,
he'd be one of the first people that leaves Arsenal in less than ideal circumstances, but that I would root for in his next club. Normally, once you're gone, fuck yous, as you like to say.
And I agree that he'll flourish in somewhere like La Liga or the French league. I think I do, and it'll be one of them ones that will sell him and he'll turn out brilliant, and then we'll say, "Oh, why'd we sell him for it?" But anyway. moving on towards the end here, Jess, there's a lot of debate at the minute which competition we should be pursuing, or whether we should be pursuing both. Or do you think via the league now, with the competition in front of us, that these European places are out of reach, or do you still sort of hold hope that Arsenal can put some sort of a run together to make a charge towards those positions coming to the end of the season?
I mean, I think we kind of talked about this a little bit. It's hard for me to really have a conclusive thought about this, because the next 5 games that we have in the league, for me, will determine whether we have enough, because we have to take points off of the teams that are above us. And those are the teams that we're going to play: Everton, Leicester, Spurs, West Ham,
Chelsea, Liverpool.
We have to take points off of these teams, and I've yet to see it up until this point. Said this before, we've yet to take points from a team that's above us or a team that's in good form. Everybody that we beat up to this point has either been relegation side, below us, or on a bad run of form. So I think both competitions are still in play. But
we beat West Ham, but that was like the 3rd game.
That was way before they became. I mean, when we play West Ham this time, it's going to be different. We got lucky we played them when we did, and we struggled that game too.
We beat United. I'm actually wanting to make your point for you, because like we beat those teams when they were at absolute low, and
it's not West Ham
probably, and we're lucky in the case of West Ham, we were lucky to beat them. So I mean, it's incredible. You've mentioned that a few times, and I'm looking at the table, and it's true. It's just
I'm waiting for us to put in a performance against somebody that is not just going to lay down and take it. I mean,
we have our first chance on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, but I think until we're out of the Europa League, we're still in it. I think it's actually, for me, I think it's more likely to get to qualify for Europe through the league than it actually is to win the Europa League, personally. But I also think that with the amount of teams that are in between us, I just don't know. So ask me that same question maybe in a couple of days. We'll see where we are. But
our decision could be made for us on Thursday evening. Yeah. You wouldn't know. But
I want to see if we beat them. Yeah.
Benfica. Yeah, and I suppose because it's the one positive of the 2-legged fixtures is that you almost get like a dummy run against teams. It's almost quite everyone's quite reserved in those first legs, and you really see the real game in the second leg. But Ryan, this is an interesting question for you, because there was a while ago in the festive period where I was sort of tinkling towards the idea of making a change in regards to the manager. But you were adamant
almost picked the phone up.
That would need to give him time. I was, man, but open it here. I've said that window is gone. Once that it passed, they've committed now to me. They have to keep him around, and that really looks to be what will happen, regardless of what happens in this season. Mikel Arteta will remain Arsenal manager unless anything drastic happens. But what are your expectations for the project that we have heard of for the next sort of 18 months to 2 years? Like realistically, what do you think what objectives can we achieve within that time frame realistically?
Well, presuming that things are going to start to go back to normal. That I know it seems like I'm always making excuses for Arteta, but he still he's had 2 months of normality really before everything changed last February. Then we came in. Now we've had games behind closed doors. We're playing an away leg. We're playing a home leg in Greece on Thursday, and then we're playing at Sunday on 12 p.m. There's been no crowds. He still hasn't had a pre-season. He hasn't had one single pre-season. We played Chelsea in the FA Cup on the 1st of August, and we played again in August, Liverpool. The transfer market, we didn't get rid of the players because of a pandemic. It'd just be so crazy to judge a manager who's never managed before in this year. People will say you're making excuses. This is the year you can make excuses.
Yeah, I mean, you could say he shouldn't have been. You could say he shouldn't have been the man to begin with. He shouldn't have been because he's never managed before. But now that he's here and he's he's trying.
But I said, no.
Is
but
that
I
really
think
where we are now, though?
I'll
But
put
I
a
mean,
better devil's advocate argument towards it, Ryan. Is that everyone has had to deal with those circumstances, not only Mikel Arteta.
No, but yeah, and that's true. But it's what I'm comparing them to is our other managers, because I see an online quite a bit about Emery did this, or the last one of Wenger was that. But none of you can't compare the two when this has been just the most crazy year. Arteta, and he's trying. Yeah, it might look it might look like that. But what I'll say, Owen,
that was joking around with what I said. No, I mean you're making better points.
What I'll say, is that let's just say that we play. Let's say the fixture list ends up that we're playing Man City 12 games into next season, right? And let's just say things go back to relatively normal, right? And we're playing Manchester City next season. If we played like how we played on Sunday and we were in 10th or 11th with that scenario, with new players in, players gone, and we're in that scenario, then I will be a lot more anti Mikel Arteta. I'll be honest and say the season's not gone how I expected, how I thought it would go, but I'm still fully behind Arteta. And until I've seen us produce this in kind of a normal-ish season, then he'll keep my support.
And I just want to defend myself quickly. Look, Zamir and Mike Hernandez, it's called playing devil's advocate. You can say whatever you want as long as you say I'm playing devil's advocate. Okay, like I'm playing devil's advocate. These are two dicks. No, look, I agree with you. I think, to be honest with you, I had extreme doubts, which I think everybody was probably, I'd say the fan base was split 50-50 at that point before that Chelsea game around the Christmas period. And I think a lot of people would have opted to maybe make a change at that time. But again, like I said, the club committed, they kept hold of him. They've shifted on a lot of the deadwood now. And to me, it has to be at least Christmas, at least Christmas next year. And that's when the judgment can be cast. For me anyway. But look, that's the end of my questions. What I want to get from everybody before we finish up is a prediction for the Benfica game on Thursday. So, Jess, prediction?
2-0 Arsenal.
2-0 Arsenal. Wicked.
2-0, 2-0. Is it weird if I say 2-0? I know it's
it's fine. It's
okay.
Fine. You've already said soccer and stuff here, so
yeah, 2-0.
Yeah.
Way to represent our side of the Atlantic, Jess. Way to go, man.
And I don't know whether, before I ask Mike, whether we'll do some user questions if you two guys have time, if the guys in the chat have any questions.
If anyone wants to ask Jess or Ryan, or God forbid Owen or myself anything, put them in the chat now, and we'll we've got a few minutes to probably go through a few.
Prediction.
As for predictions, we tend to play all right in Athens. The last time I saw a game there, it was 3-0, Giroud hat trick. So I'm gonna go with 3-0 on this one as well. We're better than they are.
Did we not go out of the Europa League in Athens last year?
Yeah, I think we did.
Olympiacos.
Or a couple years. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. In the round, we lost to them in the round of 32, I think.
Yeah, we were at home. Yeah. So.
I mean, it was a two-legged match, and then
we had a lead
until Leno kicked it out of bounds for a corner kick, and we lost.
Oh my gosh!
But bringing back good memories there of COVID being spread around the Emirates, and then me walking around in there. But yeah, 3-0. I think we win this. I keep saying this, but every time people think Arsenal's just lost it, like completely lost their edge and are heading for the gutter, we come back with some back-to-back victories of some sort. And every time we think that we're great, we come back and Wolves happens and Villa happens. So I don't know that, just to go back a second, I don't know that 6th or 5th in the league is gone yet. Probably gone, but I mean, we can put together a run, and because those games are against the players, the teams ahead of us, that would obviously move us up the table. Ryan, Olympiacos, Benfica.
Yeah, well, just what you said as well, Mike. Just there's 13 games left, right? Can you remember what everyone was saying like 13 games ago? Like Pep was past it, Mourinho v Lampard for the title, Hasenhoff gonna get. So I just think it's very early to write off things. Like there's 13 games to go, and the teams that are ahead of us aren't used to being there, and that could work in their favor. That might not. As Jess said earlier, they haven't rested a lot of those teams. Like, could that come and haunt them? I know a couple of Villa people are beginning to say their team's beginning to look a little tired now because they've only played basically 13 players this season. So yeah. And,
that's how those teams always do it. That's how Sheffield United did it, and made a good position last year. That's how. I mean, Leicester's always when they've been top three, including their championship, they've just been ridiculously healthy. When they haven't been, they've finished eighth.
Yeah.
And that's always the team that's kind of permanently changed their form, not just a 1 year thing. So there's a lot to be gained still. It's getting awfully late, but
I just want to see Arteta stop tinkering. I just don't think that there's any reason for it, because I know that it's like, okay, you want to be risk adverse and all that kind of stuff, and really just but tiptoeing around it is not going to make it work. If you think that the lineup that played against Benfica the first time is your best lineup, play that lineup into the ground and make that lineup work, and stop, because moving the pieces around is not working. The other teams are not doing that. I'd rather us get a good run of games with our best team and then figure it out later. I guess that's what I'd rather do. Just play our best team as much as possible and then figure it out later. I mean, tinkering is not working. That's just,
Yeah.
Did we get a score for the game on Thursday from Ryan?
Oh yeah, 2-0 as well. What Jeff said, 2-0.
We've got to be able to shut them down. We've got to be able to shut them down a little bit. I mean,
they didn't look very good.
The only goal they got against us was the handball.
I didn't rate them at all, actually.
Yeah. Here's a good question. Oh, sorry, I jumped in front of you, man. Drew's more important. Throw this one to you, Ryan. What is the line for you next season in either direction? What has to realistically happen next season for this fan base to stop worrying?
So what do we have to do in next season? I think we need to just be consistently in the top 6, and winning. I think we need to be on. I think we need to try and make those runs that we had after Christmas and the way we played in those games. Again, I know it was only like West Brom and Chelsea and Newcastle and Southampton. I think we need to try and make that the norm. And obviously, we're not going to win every game, and we're not going to play well in every game. But I think we need to play well. We need to play well in those games and pick up points way more than we have for most of this season. And to be fair, is back to my whole pre-season thing again. I do think, just having worked at a club before, I do think that to have a pre-season is. I feel like we think as fans that pre-season is where you go through your fitness and stuff like that, but it's really not. It's where pre-season is where you go through. You work on your shape. You get used to seeing players, playing with players, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. You go through. I just remember, Owen, you asked me I think the first time, what our best formation is, and I couldn't really answer it. And I think the reason why is because I don't think Arteta knew, because we didn't have the pre-season. And I think now that it looks like things are going to go back to normal, touch wood, and we're going to have that, I expect to see such a difference in our playing style next year. That's my prediction. We'll start to see consistent patterns of how we play. As once we'll start to stick to a formation, and I think that will as well. I think the fan base will be sort of encouraged by that.
This was a trick question, Ryan, because the second part of it
Wow, I've just said that for
No,
2
no, no,
minutes.
no, that was an excellent
Your
answer.
answer was flawless.
Your answer
okay.
was your answer was perfection, but the trick in the question is for this fan base to stop worrying. Nothing will make this fan base.
Okay.
There's, I mean, and Drew knows that. Like Drew will be fighting with people on Twitter for 10 years, even if we win the league for 10 straight years, because he's got the need to just tell these idiots that they could just shut up. And I love that he's there to do it because my blood pressure would go through the roof if I had to do it. So it's good that he does. But no, I mean the question was answered perfectly. I just the fan base, and I guess this could go off in a completely different direction about the fan base. I mean, the get worked up, and this whole thing about accepting mediocrity. I have to go here for a second because there's so much like, yeah, they were Manchester City, so you're okay losing 1-0. That's the problem with you, and that's the problem with our fan base is they always accept. I mean, what is getting angry and screaming and yelling going to accomplish? Like, it's like waking up in the morning and looking outside and just going mental over the weather. Like I have less control over the weather.
You've never been to Ireland, buddy, have you? That's all we do.
Does the weather change when you get upset about it? Like what? I mean, does it get better? Because I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, my wife looks outside and doesn't get upset that it's snowing, and I'm screaming at her that she's willing to accept mediocre weather because she doesn't have enough ambition. I mean, the whole thing is just stupid. Like don't be upset if you want to be upset. Scream if you want to scream, but don't tell other people that they're the problem because they're not.
Question with a positional one. For me, it depends. Personally, it depends on the level of investment. A minimum of top 6. If there's a heavy amount of investment, top 4. There you go.
Let's rip that back into the seriousness.
Yeah.
I would agree with that actually. Mikey, should the Europa League and Champions League have just one game knockouts moving forward until things go back to being normal?
Yes.
I'd say yes. I would have started that before this round when teams had to start playing. I mean, I know it's about money, and I know the more games there are, the more TV there is. But I mean, Jess, is it too late to put the genie back in the bottle as far as this is concerned and do it like they did last year?
I mean, I think that's what should have happened from the very beginning. They've kind of messed this up, and this whole, I don't know, like, some teams being able to play at home. I know Barcelona played at the Camp Nou, but other people are playing in random spots. We're playing in random spots. It's not really home and away advantage and, that kind of stuff. But just for the safety of the players and just for to streamline the whole situation so it's not so convoluted and have too many moving parts, I think, a knockout would be much easier, and just get it done, just finish it off. It's not like the games are, I have to say, like, since we don't have fans in the stadiums, what's the point of having home and away and all these extra games anyway? It's pretty sterile and boring anyway. I mean, if we're honest, like, this isn't the best product anyway. I'd rather just, get to the point.
Yeah, I mean, last year they did it in such a compressed period of time. I mean, you went from 16 down to the final in the Champions League in like 3 weeks. I mean, it was crazy. It was fun to watch, but like they're not facing the same compressed schedule this year. So, but it just from a travel standpoint and with all these new rules about isolation and all that. I mean, it I don't know. It's just us yelling at the sky because the TV companies run the whole thing anyway. And they're not going to change it. So, any other questions that we have, or have I just gone off the deep end here at the end for some unknown reason?
Here's one here from Daniel Robert. Ryan, how much can we get for Bellerin?
Who you insulted a few minutes ago by saying he was less important than Drew, and I don't think he's going to forget that. I think he's already tweeting shit about you and our podcast.
Daniel Roberts a great guy.
We got to hold on to these guys.
He's one of those guys that has a guitar in the background of his living room, but he can't actually play guitar. Anyway, but we'll let you get your question answered. Ryan, how much can we get for Bellerin in the summer, and who would your ideal replacement be?
For the first bit, it depends who's in for him, but probably I think we could get 25 million. My ideal Lamptey, Tariq Lamptey at Brighton is my ideal replacement.
Flawless
Very
answers,
good.
Ryan. Flawless answers. I like it. Yeah, no,
He-
Lamptey.
I know he's been a bit injured but he's just been the one player from right back that stood out like a sore thumb. I think Cash at Aston Villa has done well as well, but yeah, for
But
Lamptey is the one.
Lamptey ticks all the boxes as well, because if I'm would it be correct in saying as well that he's a Chelsea reject, so ticks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Do we? There's a guy at
He's
West
not-
Brom that would do well in that role. I think. Like if we went, he's on loan there. I think. He can play
No,
right
he's a
back.
midfielder by trade. You
Yeah,
know, and
yeah, but I think
He's a left winger.
this is me kind of understanding the game and the tactics and the man management. I think he could actually do a job at right back, even though he's a midfielder. I forget what his name is, but
no.
Who do you think? If
Danny Alves.
We were actually linked with him in the summer, if I'm right,
oh, God.
on a free or a loan, whatever it was.
Who's his agent?
Okay, ring here.
I'm just playing.
No, I agree with you. Lamptey will be my top. Matty Cash as well is another good one. Aarons from Norwich is another good one. I'm not sure he's hitting the same heights that he was as he was last season, so I'm not sure. It's a tricky one, but thank God we've got Arteta and Adu to pick them out. So I can guarantee you we're going to get Ivanovic.
somebody just said Azpilicueta. Yeah. Bring him in.
I said like a couple months ago that we had just signed a pre-contract with him for 2027. We've nailed him down so that no one else can get him. But I just anyone with Premier League experience or even upper level championship experience, I guess if you're talking about Max Aarons, just don't want to get another project to come in. I mean, Cedric Suarez can do a job there. We need an upgrade, and we need someone that can hit the ground running in the league.
Yeah.
Drew and I have talked about somebody else, because my thing with Lamptey, like if you guys don't like Bellerin and some of his defensive flaws, Lamptey is not the best defender either, and he does get dribble passed a lot, but what he gives you in the final third is really good, and he's intense and young and all that kind of stuff, so that's good. But somebody else that I really like is Denzel Dumfries. He's actually plays for PSV, and we could get him for next to nothing. It's not going to cost a lot. He's 24 years old. I think he's the captain of his team, so he has true leadership qualities, and he plays for the Dutch national team. And I think moving forward, we need to bring in players that have something to play for besides a check, wanting to play for your national team and keep your spot on a competitive national team is really beneficial to a team like us, because they have something to work for. So that's somebody else that I think we were linked with him too. I would like to see him come in 6'2", fast, scores goals. I mean, likes to head the ball.
If only we had an extensive scouting network that could find these guys.
No, but do you want to know what the problem is now? What I just realised there, Jess, is that you're spending too much time podcasting with Drew, because you ruined all our arguments within seconds. You brought up an obscure player from outside the league with a low market value that would produce more than likely. So
he hasn't been encouraging you to write dossiers, has he? I mean, he hasn't. Drew is the deacon of dossiers.
Ryan's got an alternative, do you, Ryan? I can see you're itching to go there.
No. I was just going to say to Jess, I actually don't mind. I don't mind the fact that we could, or in the future or whatever, if we're attacking how I want us to attack with our fullbacks high, creating overloads and stuff, I can accept that. I can accept bringing in a fullback who's not the best defensively if I really think he's going to contribute in an attacking way. That's the only thing I'll say. But it's not that I disagree with the guy Dumfries. Is it Dumfries?
Yeah.
I've not. Yeah.
He's definitely different style than Lamptey, but he scores goals and gets forward. He's a really good player, but I would take Lamptey. It depends on how Arteta wants to play with a right back. If he wants to copy Pep and play with the, the pinched in, almost like a midfielder right back, then I don't think Lamptey it would be a good fit for that either. I think that's why he likes Hector.
You're right.
Because he has certain types of technical quality, although it's not as high as Cancelo. But
it's so weird because I feel like we did that once. We did that in Arteta's first 45 minutes against
we did that with Maitland-Niles
Maitland-Niles, and we did that.
Yeah, and he was perfect for that.
Yeah, and he was. And you could tell I think we did it a couple times at the start, and we've not gone back to it. The kind of inverted, they call it, right? The inverted sort of fullback where they push into, instead of overlapping, they push into midfield.
Look, I think we have a long-term right back replacement. He's a guy that's been on this show and he's just got a new knee, so he should be ready to go anytime soon.
Is this your obligatory mention coming up?
You talking about Lee Dixon?
Yes.
I thought you were talking about Tom Canton for a second.
No. But now you've did it for me. Thanks for
yes. No, I would
contractual duties.
Of all the people that have been on the pod in the last month, I think he would probably be the best right back for us right now.
I'd like to hope so.
I used to play right back. You might want to try me.
I mean, you've got the young, the youth, the hunger. I'm not so sure Dicko is still has that hunger. But speaking of hunger, Drew's just lying there asking for people to bring him cities. That's how lazy a person could get. I thought I was the only person that did that. Bring me Baku. With a side of hot sauce, please. I was actually thinking this. I hate to say it. I think the time is over for him. He can't get us. I mean, I don't even think that he's allowed in London anymore for whatever reason. But Callum Chambers, bought as a right back for a lot of money, and was never that awful when he played there, in my opinion. So, in any case.
He's got quite a lot of time left, hasn't he, on his deal? I think I'm saying.
Yeah, I think we've got him for like another 8.5 years. We should at least play him. So, all right. So let's finish this up. Big game on Thursday. We all think we're going to win. So we'll get together and discuss it after about how wrong we were. Quick shout out to the gents that were on the podcast last week, Andrew and Liam from Madison, Wisconsin. They're doing a charity fundraiser for St. Baldrick's, which is a charity that helps raise money for cancer research for especially for youth cancer, which my buddy Andrew was a survivor of, and they're shaving their heads and beards and whatever else for charity on March 13th or 14th. But go to check out our Twitter account. We'll post the link for that. And Jess, you made it. You survived.
This was fun.
Will you ever be talking to us again, or was this a?
Of course. I mean, this was what I thought. This was very on brand for you. So good job for you. It was exactly what I expected. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed myself. I want to come back. So invite me back. I'll come. That's
great, and we'd love to continue to collaborate with you. And congratulations and continued good luck with your podcasting career, which is off and running. Ryan, we're going to see you. What's the next big loss that we have coming up?
Yeah.
No, man, it's always good to see you. I appreciate your point of view. Anything going on with you that you want to get out there?
Nah, nothing. Just keep the faith with Arteta, I guess. Nah.
He always makes me look like such a bastard because he's so positive and sweet and nice, and I'm such a dick. And
I love Ryan is good counterweight for the show. I mean, like
yeah,
it's perfect. We enjoy having you on, mate.
Just sign him up as a host.
Nah, I don't.
and Jess, I forgot to ask you if you want to get the Twitter handle, the channel, the name of the channel where we can find you out there.
Yeah, if you guys want to watch my post-match show for Arsenal, it's called She Knows Arsenal, and it's on the Bearded Gooners channel. But if you just go into the YouTube search bar and type in She Knows Arsenal, I will pop up. I also have my own channel called Jessinho TV, so you can find me there. And all of my information is on Twitter at It's Jessinho, so that's where I'll be.
If you go to Google and search, he has no clue about Arsenal, I pop up. So it's nice to be on that same level as you. Owen, what are you up to? How many more pods are you going to be on this week?
I don't know. It depends. You keep dragging me into them, man. I keep being my missus always asks me at the start of the week. It's like, how many podcasts do you have? And I'm like, I've only got one this week, and then I end up doing like 6, and it's like, blame Mike.
Yeah, well, in July we're just going to do one podcast, but it's going to be a 24-hour charity fundraising podcast. So make sure your family has plans that day.
And make sure you two are available, Ryan and Jess, for that.
Oh yeah, we'll be calling on all of our friends to do some part of the 24 hours. So we know we can get Tanner to do it at like 4:30 a.m. local time, and then we can get Danny to do it at 4:30 a.m. his local time. So I'm already working on the schedule. The wheels are turning. But to everyone else, thanks for watching. Join us after the Benfica game, not directly after, but probably the next day. And come on, you Gunners.